the world keep turning, my life is spinning around. Like the world keep turning, my life is upside down. Well, I've got the blues, but it ain't gonna get me down. I said, yeah, 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 yeah. I said, yeah, 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 yeah. There's my baby, there's my baby. Yeah, 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 yeah. Love is tough, but it's not gonna get me down.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another adventure in the life of the old-time rock and roller. Yes, the video chapters just keep coming and coming and coming. This story will begin in 1999. It was late January or early February, and I had driven to Memphis to see the International Blues Challenge, which is a great event held on Beale Street over 3 or 4 days. Blues societies from all over the world send bands there to compete in an international blues competition. While I was there, I met Bruce Iglauer, who started Alligator Records in 1971. Bruce is a really great guy, and we hit it off pretty well. In fact, he said, if you're ever working on anything and you want to mail it to me for some feedback, feel free. Here's my address and my phone number and so forth. So every CD after that, after On Fire, I mailed it to him, and he sent me back a very nice letter with all of his comments, good and bad, on every single song. He's a real stand-up guy and has done so much for the blues. Now, I was preparing for the next record, which I decided would be called Spirit of the Blues. Had a great catchy title, I thought. Kind of like the Spirit of St. Louis, the airplane. I went to Memphis in May to see the Blues Awards. My friend Joey Hadley, who was in the Fabulous Mustangs with me, and a former deputy at the sheriff's office, picked me up at the airport, and we went back to his house. We chilled out for a little while, and then we hit Beale Street. And it was great. We pulled up to an overcrowded parking lot. He jumped out and whipped out his badge and said, "Hey, you let the police park here?" The guy said, "Sure, park anywhere you like." So we went to the Rum Boogie, and Joey whipped out his badge and said, "Hey, you let the police in here?" The guy said, "Sure, come on in." So I didn't have a badge or a ticket or any of that stuff, and we were going to see everything. So after the awards, there was a post-Handy jam session. At that time, they called it the W.C. Handy Awards. Now they call it the Blues Awards. So I was at the awards, and I was talking to some friends from Saffire the Uppity Blues women and E.G. Kight, the Georgia Songbird, and they announced the jam session was going to start, the post-Handy jam at the New Daisy Theater. So I got up with Ronnie Baker Brooks, Tab Benoit, and Mark from the Nighthawks. And we had a hell of a jam, but it was a super time. I had been in touch with Ray, and he had the RV band out in the San Francisco Bay Area. It consisted of Ray on keyboard and vocal, Diane Dutra, his wife, on bass and vocal, Chuck Capdeville on drums, and a horn player who wasn't really in the band. His name was Dave Parnell. He used to come in and sit in, and they'd give him some of the tip money. Dave was a great guy. He had gone to Vallejo High School with Sly Stone, but he had played with the Coasters and David T. Walker and toured all over Canada in a group called the Perfect Circle. Not too many years ago, I got an email from a guy whose father was in the Perfect Circle, and he wanted to know more about the band and the guys in it. And he read on my website a tribute that I had written to Dave and mentioned that, and he emailed me to ask me about that. I flew out to San Francisco, met Ray, and stayed at his place. I had previously mailed him a copy of the songs that I wanted to record for the next record, and he had sent me some that he wanted to do also that he had written. And I sent a couple of covers. So he had a couple of dive bars, basically, near his house. One was called the Golden Bubble. That's where I met Dave for the first time. And it was just it could have been somebody's big living room with a pool table. But they cleared this couple of tables away and the band set up there. And Chuck Cap DeVille was the drummer. So we had a really good time. I brought my cassette player and I taped everything. And all of the solos that I had played ad lib, I went home and improved upon. But while I was out there, I went down to Palm Springs to see my old friend Bobby Zinner. And he took me out to a desert studio where his bass player was, and he called up Bill Lorden, the drummer for Robin Trower, to come out and jam. Bill said sure. He had just finished the Bill Lorden project. And we had a great jam session. Bill later sent me a big autograph picture of us all playing together. And he sent me a picture of him playing with Jimi Hendrix. And he told us a story about Woodstock, where Jimmy had called him to ask him to play Woodstock. And he was tied up or on some local gig. And his answering service, because at the time we didn't have answering machines, everybody had an answering service. And then they'd call you and give you the message. Well, they wouldn't give Jimmy Bill's phone number. So Bill actually missed playing at Woodstock because of the answering service. It's another story, but it was a great honor to play with the fabulous Bill Lorden, because the Robin Trower Bridge of Sighs album just blew my doors off. I went back to Ray's, and we had another gig at a place called Chris's Club, which was another dive bar, but we did our thing, and it was a little tighter and a little better. And then I went back to Atlanta. Well, I set about to book us some gigs so I could bring the band to town. The first place I can't even remember the name of, but the band had flown all night, and Ray was up all night and came in at the airport at 6, and we went straight to the gig. He was throwing up in the alley during the breaks because he was, not used to that. Flying all night, being up, performing. That's the way it goes. So the next night, we were at a place called Roosters in Douglasville, home of the blues. We had maybe 200 people there. It was packed to capacity. And many of the DJs and my friends from WRFG were out there. I'm going to play you a couple of songs from that show, and you will see the excitement that we had going on. Even my son, Forrest Bryan, my first son, was in town. He was about 18, 17, and he filmed it for me on my little crummy camcorder. But it's good enough to see the band a little bit. Well, it was a hot night. I think it was August. And not normally a drinker, but I ordered a big mug of beer before the last set. And I started drinking it. We had a couple of songs to go, and I just couldn't wait. And I said, Ray, I gotta go. Dave, take a long solo. So I put my axe down and I ran off to the men's room. Well, when I opened the men's room door, there was a very attractive blonde-haired lady in there who pushed me back and around and pushed me into the ladies' room. And she grabbed me and started making out with me like crazy. I couldn't believe it. I hadn't had anything like that happen since 10 or 20 years before that. It was very flattering, but I had to get back up on stage. Like we did a couple of nights there, as a matter of fact. I got on the stage and finished out the set, and it was really cool. And one night, Cap was wearing a red felt hat, and he sweated so much. He was bald, and when he took the hat off, his whole skull was red from the dye of the hat. That was funny. They went back to San Francisco, and I kept practicing and working on songs for the record. Well, Mike Bloomfield from the Electric Flag was one of the greatest blues guitar players of all time. Certainly one of my big idols. And I got to meet Mike at the Starwood in 1977 in LA. I used to play there several times and had a chance to talk to him and meet him. And I had already played with Nick the Greek, Nick Revenites, at the Lion's Share on tour with the Kathy McDonald Band when Nick and Mickey Hart wanted to sit in and play a blues with us. So it was great seeing Mike, and I just got in from Texas off the Electric Flag album. Buddy Miles sang it, and Mike played an unbelievable solo. So I was sitting there at my kitchen table with my cassette player and backing it up and playing along, and I took a break, and my son Hunter, who was probably 8 then, was sitting there with me, keeping me company and listening. And I got up and said, "Boy, Hunter, I would love to play that good one day." And he said, "Dad, I think you already are that good." Out of the mouths of babes. So here's a little cut from the Atlanta Blues Festival. I just got in from Texas. I hope you enjoy it.
All right, you are too kind. Thank you very much.
Mr. Forrest McDonald on banjo over there. Mr. Forrest McDonald. Dave Parnell on saxophone.
That's right.
Can you hear yourself in the monitor all right?
Although I make Atlanta my adopted hometown, I am from Austin, Texas. Every once in a while, we like to do some down home, down dirty blues. It's one off our Spirit of the Blues CD called, and I'd like to play this one for Blackjack and AJ. I just got in from Texas.
That's Forrest McDonald on guitar down there. Holy moly. It don't seem like he has too much of a big piece of the blues today. He's feeling all right. Just got it from Texas. Lord, you will not even call out my name. I just got it from Texas, girl. You will not even call my name. Baby, let me try to explain. You're gonna drive me crazy if you walk out on me again. I'm begging you now, darling. I just don't understand the way you treat me, honey. I believe you tossing anger out to a drowning man. I've got your number just as sure as anything. Nothing scares you, don't expect a goddamn thing. So I'm begging you now, darling. I just don't understand the way you treat me, honey. I believe you tossing anger out to a drowning man. Yeah, yeah. So I'm begging you now, darling. I just don't understand the way you treat me, baby. I believe you throw an anchor out to a drowning man. Up the day, come on, baby. I just don't understand the way you treat me, honey. I believe you throw an anchor to a drowning man.
Now, what did you think of that? That was pretty damn good, I thought. We decided to cut the record at a place called Prairie Sun Studio in Cotati, California. So I flew out to Ray's. We did another gig or two at Chris's Club or the Golden Bubble. And then we went out to Prairie Sun Studio. Ralph Patlin was our engineer. And we set up in one big room. The piano was over here, and I was over here, and Diane was here, and Dave was here, and Cap was in a booth. And we recorded all of the songs in one take except for two. One we had the wrong key on that we started. And the second one, we did a version of Let Me Go Home Whiskey. And I said, Ray, is there a solo in this? And he said, no solo. So we got to a part in the song and he yells, solo! I was like, what solo? So we had to stop and do that one again, and I played a solo to it. So I got the tapes, flew back to Atlanta, took them out to Dogwood Studio for 2 overdubs, mixing and mastering. Ron Benner did a great job. We mixed it up. I used DRT mastering, David Torrance in New Hampshire, I believe. Ron knew him and turned me on to it. And I had it pressed at Denon Digital. My friend Blackjack got me hooked up with an artist who did the specifications. And my sister Kathy, I took a picture. It was an old public domain picture from the 20s of the Paramount Theater and old New York cars, and it said now playing. It was like Gone with the Wind or something. And I got Kathy, my sister, who is an artist, to paint on there somehow Forrest McDonald Band, Spirit of the Blues. It was really cool. Had it around here somewhere. Yeah. So there was the theater, and then Spirit of the Blues now playing, whatever. Well, I went out to San Francisco to do another gig. Ray had gotten us a super gig at a very famous hotel in San Francisco. And he had invited an attorney who was a potential investor, but he didn't tell me that. While I was there, I met the guy on a break. And I told him that I called all my own shots, I did everything my way, and so on and so forth. And he said, well, you know, there might come a time where you might have to do what somebody else says. And I had no idea that he was sort of hinting around at saying, I might give you a big chunk of money if you do everything I tell you. But I insisted, no, I'm doing it my way. And that's just the way I roll. So later, Ray was a little upset with me because he told me that that guy was a super backer and blah, blah, blah. But they put me up in the hotel, and it was really cool. And a great gig. And the next morning, Ray and I were at the loading dock. And Ray had the big white beard. He looked like Billy Gibbons. And some kid came out and he said, I know who you are. I know who you are. And Ray said, no, I'm not him. I'm not him. And the kid didn't believe us, but we got into the limo and took off. So the record was pressed, but I got the first copy of the printing, and 2 of the songs were out of order, but they were already being pressed. So I had to order more leaflets, the back part that showed the order of the songs, and I had to, by hand, put in 1,000 of these, switching them out, having the right order. Well, I had registered my company. I got an official World Talent record barcode on the record. Debbie and Mary were doing great with the back office stuff, getting us booked tons of gigs. Things were going really well. When I was in Memphis, I met Bob Margolin, who was from Boston, and I had found his card, the Boston Blues Band. I think him and Dave Maxwell were in a band called the Boston Blues Band in the late 60s. And we used to go to Paul's Mall and the Jazz Workshop, and that's where I saw Muddy, and that's where he saw Muddy, and eventually got a gig with him. But I saw a band card on the sidewalk, and I picked it up. I saw Boston Blues Band, Bob Margolin, your number. So it was great to finally meet Bob. And I met Kenny Wayne Shepherd and Pinetop Perkins, Anthony Gomes, and some other people. It was a super time. Joey and I stayed out till late. We closed all the places. We went back to his place and got maybe 2 hours sleep. And I had an early flight out back to Atlanta. So we got in his car and man, we were flying. And we got on, I don't know, I-40 or whatever the cut around is. And we're doing about 80. We come around a corner in the left-hand lane. There's like a roadblock. And they're pulling people over right and left. And I thought, oh shit, I'm gonna miss the plane. We're gonna get a ticket. This is bad news. So the policeman came up to the car. Joey jumped out, whipped out his badge, and the guy said, "Oh, it's you. Get on out of here." So we took on off, and I just barely made the plane. But that was probably the first time I wasn't in a tizzy from seeing the blue lights in the rearview mirror, or it was the first time I got away scot-free. Either way, thank you, Joey. We got probably 140 stations, maybe, I don't know, 12, 13 million charted listeners from all over the world. It was a pretty big success, and we had a lot of really great comments. If you'll excuse me for one moment here while I put on these ancient reading glasses. Spirit of the Blues, reviewed by Rock and Blues News. From piano-dominated bouncy swing numbers, That's My Baby, to guitar sax-centered blues, Anchor to a Drowning Man, Forrest McDonald's quintet sizzles. Lead vocals by Raymond Victor are remarkable, as is his keyboard work throughout this session. Texas, the third cut on this 13-song set, combines Robert Cray-type lyrics with powerful guitar licks reminiscent of Albert Collins. Wow! The tenor sax honking and musings of Dave Parnell are distinctive. The 5-string bass work of Diane Dutra is solid, and the percussion magic of Chuck, Mr. Metronome, Cap DeVille is electric. The performing maturity and clarity of this group, coupled with the lyrical, rhythmic genius of Texas-born McDonald, make this fine production a can't miss recording. So you can see the comments were good. And it was a big success. We were really happy. And it was just the beginning. But that pretty much took up all of 1999. Now, I was reminded of a story, before I go, of the late, great Steve Jablecki from the Wadsworth Mansion and our band Slingshot together. This was during the time when I had returned from Muscle Shoals back to New England and was playing with the Spies and Sundance. Steve had been riding a motorcycle, no helmet. He was doing about 50 across his parking lot, and he hit a bump that turned the bike up, and he went flying through the air head first into a car windshield and had been in a coma for 2 weeks. The hospital was near my house, and his parents called me up, and they said, "Howie, Steve's in a bad way. The doctors don't think he will ever come out of this. If you could go down there and anything you could do, anything at all, we'd appreciate it." And I said, of course. I had no idea. So I went to the hospital and I saw him lying there in the bed, eyes closed, not moving. I went up to him, right into his ear. I said, "Steve, it's Howie. Man, we gotta go to the gig. We're gonna be late. I got the car parked. Your piano and amp and guitar are ready, but we gotta go now. We gotta get on stage, man." And I just kept repeating this over and over for about 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes of it, he opened one eye and he came out of the coma slowly. And over the next 3 days, he finally was totally awake and remembered what happened. So that was a blessing, and I was happy to do that. And I forgot to put that in a previous story, so I just thought I'd mention that. One other little story, when we were out there with the jam in Palm Springs with Bill Lorden, Bob Zinner and I went to see Bobby Wiegand, my first keyboard player, doing a gig at a nightclub. And when we got there, he just finished the last minute of his set. And that Hammond was smoking, man. And he powered it down. He said, "Oh man, I just quit." It turned out that Bob and Bob knew each other. And I said, "How is this possible?" Then is when the story came out. Both of them were reading the local newspaper. Bob Zinner lived in Palm Springs. Bob Wiegand lived in Palm Desert. And they saw an ad for a Hammond organ with a Leslie speaker. Well, Bob Zinner wanted the Leslie to add to his guitar stuff to play out of it. And Bob Wiegand wanted the Hammond. They both pulled up at the same time. And they met and they got to talking, and they realized that they only wanted the organ and the Leslie. So they agreed to buy it from the guy and then split it amongst themselves. And it was at that time that they were just bullshitting that Bob said, "Where are you from?" And Bob said, "Oh, I'm from New England, from Rhode Island. I started playing music out there." And Bob Zinner said, "Oh, that's funny. I had a guy in my band, The Force, named Howie McDonald. It was funny." And Bob Wiegand said, "That's him. It's the same guy." So what are the odds that two of my best friends from opposite ends of the world would meet to buy a singular piece of equipment and discover that they were both my friends? Just a couple of anecdotal stories I thought I'd throw in there. Incidentally, throughout all of this time, although I'm giving the positive side for the most part, of the trials and the tribulations, like everyone else. I had loss and heartbreak and heartache and financial troubles and personal issues and all of that stuff. But the music kept me going and it kept me young. And I could not wait for the next record. I mean, I was just filled with energy and excitement, especially now that I was strictly on the blues path. We had all our markets defined, we had our mailing list intact, and we were getting great response. So at that point, my friends, I'm going to end today's story. I want to thank you for coming along, and now I can say officially, thanks for riding with the old-time rock and roller on the blues train with Spirit of the Blues. Keep loving your heart, a song in your head, and I will see you down the story highway on the next adventure of the old-time rock and roller. So long, my friends. Thanks for watching.